Alexander Kane stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, gazing at the Manhattan skyline. His reflection showed a man who had everything: custom Italian suit, designer watch, and the confidence that came with being CEO of one of America's fastest-growing financial institutions. Yet something was troubling him deeply. The latest customer satisfaction report sat on his desk, each page telling a story that went against everything he had built his empire on. Kane International Banking had grown from a single branch to a nationwide network, but success seemed to be breeding complacency. The complaints were becoming more frequent, customers feeling dismissed, treated differently based on their appearance, or simply ignored. "Mr. Kane?" His assistant, Sarah Chen, appeared at the door. "The board meeting is in 10 minutes. Alexander nodded, still lost in thought. 20 years ago, he had been on the other side of those bank counters, a struggling artist trying to secure a loan for his first independent film project. The memory of being dismissed and judged based on his appearance had never left him. Now, hearing similar stories from his customers felt like a personal betrayal of everything he had worked to change. "Cancel the board meeting," he said suddenly, turning to face Sarah. Her usually composed expression flickered with surprise. "Sir, the quarterly projections can wait," he finished, already removing his tie. "I need you to do something else for me, something important." Sarah watched in bewilderment as her boss disappeared into his private washroom, emerging minutes later in jeans and a worn hoodie from his car's emergency wardrobe. Gone was the polished CEO. In his place stood a man who could blend into any crowd. "I want a complete audit of branch 2248 in Brooklyn," he said, pulling a baseball cap low over his eyes. "But don't start until I call you. And Sarah? No one knows about this. Not the board, not the branch manager, no one." "Of course, but—" Sarah hesitated. "What exactly are you planning?" Alexander smiled, a glimmer of his old acting days sparking in his eyes. "A little performance piece, something I learned in my theater days. If you want to know the truth, sometimes you have to become invisible." He took the service elevator down to avoid being recognized by his employees. In the underground parking garage, he bypassed his usual town car and called a rideshare service. As he settled into the back seat of a modest sedan, his mind wandered to the complaint that had triggered this impromptu investigation. A young entrepreneur, barely out of college, had written about trying to open a business account. Despite having all the required documentation and a solid business plan, she had been treated with skepticism and eventually turned away. The reason? According to her letter, it was clear the staff had judged her based on her age and casual appearance. The ride to Brooklyn gave Alexander time to slip fully into character. He thought about his own journey, from a struggling artist to an unexpected business success. The banks that had rejected him, the doors that had been closed in his face, all because he didn't fit their image of success. He had promised himself that his bank would be different. As the car pulled up to branch number 248, Alexander took a deep breath. The modern glass building bore his name in elegant letters, but would it live up to the principles that name was supposed to represent? Through the windows he could see customers waiting in line, some in business attire, others in working clothes. "Thanks," he told the driver, stepping out onto the sidewalk. A woman in an expensive suit brushed past him to enter the bank, the security guard immediately jumping to attention to open the door for her. When Alexander approached moments later, the same guard barely glanced in his direction. He smiled to himself. The performance was about to begin, and his audience had no idea they were about to play starring roles in their own revelation. As he pushed through the heavy glass doors, Alexander Kane, billionaire CEO, disappeared completely. In his place was just another face in the crowd, about to expose the truth about how his vision of equality had somehow gotten lost in translation. The marble lobby of branch 248 gleamed under artificial lighting, but Alexander immediately noticed the stark contrast in how different customers were being treated. A receptionist who had just warmly greeted a man in an expensive suit was now studiously avoiding eye contact with an elderly woman struggling with her walking cane. Alexander approached the help desk, where a young employee named Jessica, according to her nameplate, was engrossed in her phone. He cleared his throat politely. Nothing. He tried again, louder this time. Jessica looked up with undisguised annoyance. "Yes?" she asked, the word drawn out like an exhausted sigh. "I'd like to discuss opening a high-yield investment account," Alexander said, maintaining the perfect balance of politeness and determination he'd learned during his acting days. Jessica's eyes flicked over his worn hoodie and faded jeans. Her lips curved into a dismissive smile. "Those accounts require a minimum initial deposit of $50,000, she said, clearly expecting that to end the conversation. "I'm aware of that," Alexander replied calmly. "I'd like to speak with an investment advisor about the options available." "All our advisors are currently busy," Jessica said, despite the fact that Alexander could clearly see two advisors chatting by the coffee machine. "You'll need to make an appointment." Just then, a woman in designer clothes approached another desk. Within seconds, one of the busy advisors materialized to assist her. Alexander watched as the scene he had witnessed countless times as a struggling artist played out before him. Only now he had the power to change it. "I see Mr. Thompson isn't too busy," he observed. Nodding toward the advisor who had rushed to help the well-dressed woman, Jessica's expression tightened. "Mr. Thompson only handles our premium clients." "And how do you determine who's a premium client?" Alexander asked, his voice carrying just enough edge to make Jessica shift uncomfortably in her seat. Before she could respond, a commotion near the entrance caught everyone's attention. A young woman in paint-splattered overalls was attempting to submit small business loan paperwork, while the platform manager, Bernard Wells, was doing his best to discourage her. "Perhaps you should try one of the smaller community banks," Wells was saying, his tone condescending. "They might be better suited to your scale of operation." Alexander watched as the young woman, who couldn't have been more than 25, clutched her business plan tighter. "I've met all the requirements," she insisted. "I have the collateral, the credit score, and a solid business model. I just need someone to actually look at my application." Wells smiled the same practiced smile Alexander had seen countless times in his own struggles. "We have certain standards to maintain." "Standards based on what exactly?" Alexander found himself asking, stepping forward. Every head in the lobby turned toward him. Wells drew himself up to his full height, clearly irritated by the interruption. "This is a private matter, sir. Please wait your turn." "Actually," Alexander said, reaching into his pocket, "I believe this matter concerns me quite directly." He pulled out his ID card, not the standard issue bank card, but the executive, platinum card that marked him as the CEO. The color drained from Wells's face. "Mr. Kane," he stammered. We had no idea." "Clearly," Alexander said, his voice carrying across the now silent lobby. "And that's precisely the problem." He turned to the young woman whose eyes had gone wide with recognition. "I'd very much like to hear about your business plan, Miss Chen," she said. "Emily Chen. I'm an industrial designer. I've developed a new type of ergonomic furniture for small spaces, and I need capital to start production." Alexander gestured toward the conference room. "Shall we discuss it in detail?" As they walked, he called over his shoulder, "Mr. Wells, please gather all staff in the main conference room. We'll be having a very important discussion about our company's values after I finish with Ms. Chen." The whispers started immediately, spreading through the branch like wildfire. Jessica had disappeared from her desk, and the previously busy advisors were suddenly very still, their coffee cups forgotten in their hands. In the conference room, Emily spread out her designs, innovative, space-saving furniture that could transform for multiple uses. Her passion was evident in every sketch, every prototype photo. Alexander recognized in her the same fire he'd had 20 years ago, the same determination to succeed despite the obstacles placed in her way. "Ms. Chen," he said after she finished her presentation, "I think you'll find that Kane International Banking is about to undergo some significant changes, and I believe your furniture line would be perfect for our upcoming branch modernization project. Shall we discuss numbers?" Emily's eyes filled with tears of joy, but Alexander wasn't finished. He had a bank to transform, and it would start right here in branch W248. The real performance was just beginning. The main conference room of branch number 48 had never felt so small. 20 pairs of eyes watched nervously as Alexander Kane stood at the head of the table, his casual attire now a stark reminder of the day's revelations. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the windows, highlighting the tension in the room. "I want each of you to close your eyes," Alexander said, his voice calm but commanding. "Think back to your first job interview. Remember how it felt to sit across from someone who held your future in their hands. Remember the hope, the anxiety, the desire to prove yourself worthy of an opportunity." The staff shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Bernard Wells, the platform manager, tugged at his collar, while Jessica from the help desk stared intently at her hands. "Now," Alexander continued, "imagine being dismissed before you even got the chance to speak. Not because of your qualifications, but because of how you looked or what you wore or your age." He paused, letting the words sink in. "That's what's been happening in this branch. That's what happened to me today." Emily Chen's business proposal lay on the table before him. "This morning, we almost lost the opportunity to partner with an innovative designer whose furniture line could revolutionize our branch layouts nationwide." Why? Because she didn't fit someone's preconception of success. Sarah Chen, his assistant, had arrived during his meeting with Emily. She now stood quietly in the corner, tablet in hand, documenting everything. The coincidence of her sharing a surname with Emily hadn't escaped Alexander's notice. Both women had faced similar prejudices throughout their careers. "I built this bank on a foundation of equality and opportunity," Alexander said, his voice growing passionate. "I didn't start with a silver spoon. I was an artist, a dreamer who got lucky enough to turn one successful investment into a vision for a different kind of bank. But somewhere along the way, that vision got lost." He walked around the table, making eye contact with each person. "Jessica, why did you assume I couldn't afford a high-yield investment account?" Jessica's face flushed red. I guess I judged by appearances. I'm sorry, Mr. Kane." "And Mr. Wells," Alexander turned to the platform manager, "what made you try to turn away Ms. Chen without even reviewing her business plan?" Wells straightened his tie nervously. "We get so many applications. I thought I was being efficient by discriminating," Alexander finished. The word hung heavy in the air. "That's not efficiency. That's prejudice, and it stops today." He pressed a button on the conference room phone. "Sarah, please share the new protocols." Sarah stepped forward, her tablet connecting to the room's display screen. "Effective immediately, all customer service interactions will be documented and reviewed. We're implementing a blind application process for loans and new accounts. No photos, no in-person meetings, until initial approval based solely on qualifications." The room buzzed with whispers as Sarah continued outlining the changes. Mandatory diversity training, customer service workshops, and a revolutionary new metric system that would evaluate employee performance based on how they treated all customers, not just the wealthy ones. "But most importantly," Alexander said, regaining everyone's attention, "we're going to change the culture. Starting with this branch, we're creating a model for what banking should be. Equal opportunity isn't just a slogan, it's the foundation of our success." He picked up Emily's business proposal. "Ms. Chen's furniture line will be our first initiative under the new system. She'll be designing custom pieces for our branch modernization project, and her loan application has been approved based on the merit of her business plan." The atmosphere in the room began to shift. Where there had been defensiveness and fear, Alexander now saw the first glimmers of understanding and determination. Even Wells sat straighter, his expression thoughtful rather than anxious. "I'm not here to punish anyone," Alexander assured them. "I'm here to remind you of our purpose. Every person who walks through those doors deserves respect, deserves a chance. That's not just good ethics, it's good business." Sarah distributed tablets to each employee, loaded with the new protocols and training schedules. "Your first workshop begins tomorrow morning," she announced. "Mr. Kane himself will be leading it." As the meeting concluded, Alexander noticed Jessica lingering behind. She approached him hesitantly. "Mr. Kane." I'd like to volunteer to be the first to test the new customer service protocols. I think I have a lot to learn." Alexander smiled. Maybe there was hope for branch number 248 after all. The transformation had begun, but the real test would be in the days to come. 3 months into the transformation of branch number 248, the changes were impossible to ignore. The formerly austere lobby now featured Emily Chen's innovative furniture designs, comfortable seating that could be easily reconfigured for different needs, smart space-saving solutions that made the space feel more welcoming. But the physical changes were just the beginning. Jessica Martinez, once the dismissive help desk employee, had emerged as an unexpected champion of the new system. She stood at her station, warmly greeting an elderly man in worn workman's clothes who needed help with his retirement account. "Mr. Rodriguez, I've pulled up those investment options we discussed," she said, gesturing to a chair designed by Emily. "Would you like to go through them together?" From his temporary office in the branch, Alexander watched the interaction with satisfaction. The past months had been challenging, filled with resistance and setbacks. But moments like these proved the value of persistence. Sarah appeared at his door with the latest performance metrics. "The numbers are in," she said, a slight smile playing at her corners of her mouth. "Would you like to guess how branch number 248 is doing?" Alexander leaned back in his chair, another of Emily's designs, ergonomically perfect for long hours of work. "Given your expression, I'd say pretty well." "Try exceptional," Sarah replied, handing him the tablet. "Customer satisfaction up 87%. Loan approval rates have increased 45%, with zero increase in default rates. And here's the most interesting part. Our premium client services revenue has actually increased, even though we're no longer prioritizing them over other customers." The data told a story of transformation, but Alexander was more interested in the human element. He had spent the past 3 months personally overseeing the changes, working alongside his employees to implement the new systems. It hadn't been easy. Bernard Wells, the platform manager, had initially struggled with the new protocols. His 2 decades of banking experience had ingrained certain biases that were hard to break, but rather than fire him, Alexander had challenged him to channel his expertise differently. "Mr. Kane?" Wells appeared in the doorway, interrupting Alexander's thoughts. "Do you have a moment? There's something I think you should see." Alexander followed Wells to the loan department, where a familiar face was waiting. Emily Chen stood next to a stunning display of her furniture, including several new prototypes. But she wasn't alone. With her was a group of young entrepreneurs, all from traditionally underserved communities. "Ms. Chen approached us with an idea," Wells explained, his voice carrying a note of pride that had been absent in their first encounter. "She wants to start a mentorship program for new business owners, helping them navigate the loan application process. She thought we might want to partner with her." Emily stepped forward. "Your faith in my business changed everything. Mr. Kane, I want to pay that forward. These designers, artists, and innovators, they all have amazing ideas, but they need what I needed. Someone to look past appearances and see potential." Alexander looked around the room, taking in the hopeful faces. He saw what he had been. 20 years ago, dreamers with the drive to succeed, just waiting for an opportunity. Wells had arranged their proposals on the conference table, each one already reviewed according to the new blind application process. "The numbers look solid," Wells said, his old banking instincts now working in service of inclusion rather than exclusion. "We've run all the standard checks. These are good investments, Mr. Kane." Sarah, who had followed them down, was already making notes on her tablet. "We could expand this program to other branches," she suggested, "create a network of mentorship and support across the entire bank." The energy in the room was electric. This was what Alexander had envisioned when he first started his bank, not just a financial institution, but a catalyst for change. Jessica, passing by with Mr. Rodriguez, stopped to watch through the glass walls. Her transformation from cynical employee to enthusiastic advocate was perhaps the most telling success story of all. But Alexander knew the work wasn't finished. This was just one branch, one small corner of the banking world. The real challenge would be scaling these changes, proving that ethical banking wasn't just morally right, it was good business. As he watched Wells earnestly discussing business plans with a young artist in ripped jeans, Alexander felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The transformation of Branch No. 248 wasn't just about changing policies or procedures, it was about changing hearts and minds, one interaction at a time. 1 year had passed since Alexander Kane walked into Branch No. 248 in worn jeans and a hoodie. Standing in the transformed lobby, he could hardly believe it was the same place. Emily Chen's furniture had become the standard not just for this branch, but for Kane International Banking locations nationwide. More importantly, the spirit of the inclusion and opportunity had spread like wildfire through the entire organization. Mr. Kane, Jessica Martinez approached, confidence radiating from her every step. She had recently been promoted to Customer Experience Director, responsible for training new employees across multiple branches. The new batch of mentees is here for the program orientation, Alexander followed her to the renovated conference room, now a bright open space designed to foster collaboration. 20 aspiring entrepreneurs sat around the table, their backgrounds as diverse as their business ideas. Emily Chen stood at the front, her successful furniture line now a case study in their training materials. Welcome to Kane International Banking's Entrepreneurship Accelerator Program, Emily began, catching Alexander's eye with a smile. 1 year ago I was sitting where you are now, clutching a business plan and fighting to be taken seriously. Today I'm here to tell you that your dreams matter, your ideas matter, and most importantly, you matter. Bernard Wells, who had transformed from a barrier to opportunity into one of its strongest advocates, entered with a stack of folders. Each contained a preliminary approval for startup funding, evaluated purely on merit through their blind application system. The joy on the faces of the participants as they opened their folders reminded Alexander of why he had started this journey. Sarah Chen joined them, tablet in hand as always, but now as the bank's Chief Innovation Officer. Her rise through the ranks had paralleled the bank's transformation, her own experience with prejudice helping shape their new policies. The numbers tell an incredible story, she announced to the group. In the past year, our loan approval rates for minority and women-owned businesses have increased by 200%, while our default rates have actually decreased. We've funded over 500 new businesses through our mentorship program, creating thousands of jobs and revitalizing communities across the country. But it wasn't just about the numbers. Alexander watched as Jessica shared her own story with the group, speaking candidly about her former biases and her journey to becoming an advocate for change. Her transformation had become legendary within the bank, inspiring other employees to examine and overcome their own prejudices. The real magic, Jessica explained, happens when we stop making assumptions and start listening to each other's stories. Every person who walks through our doors has one, a dream, a struggle, a goal they're fighting to achieve. The mentorship program had expanded far beyond Emily's initial vision. Now successful entrepreneurs from their first cohort were returning to mentor new applicants, creating a self-sustaining cycle of opportunity and growth. The furniture designer's success had sparked a revolution in corporate culture that extended far beyond the banking industry. As Alexander prepared to address the group, he reflected on how a single day of undercover observation had cascaded into a complete reimagining of what banking could be. Branch No. 248, once a symbol of everything wrong with the industry, had become a model for financial institutions worldwide. When I started this bank, he began, looking around the room at faces full of hope and determination, I had a dream of creating something different, a financial institution that would judge people not by their appearance or background, but by their potential and determination. For a while, we lost sight of that dream. But thanks to the courage of people like Emily Chen, the transformation of people like Jessica and Bernard, and the dedication of everyone in this room, we've not only reclaimed that vision, we've expanded it. He gestured to the wall where photographs of successful businesses lined the halls, a gallery of dreams turned reality. Each of you sitting here today is about to become part of this legacy. Your success will inspire others, your stories will open doors, and your determination will help us continue building a more inclusive financial world. The meeting concluded with a networking session, the room buzzing with energy as mentors connected with mentees and new partnerships began to form. Alexander stood back, watching as Bernard enthusiastically discussed expansion strategies with a young tech entrepreneur, while Jessica guided a nervous artist through her business projection spreadsheets. Sarah approached him with a knowing smile. "Thinking about how far we've come. Thinking about how far we'll go," he corrected. "This is just the beginning." And he was right. The transformation of branch number 248 had sparked a movement that would continue to grow and evolve, touching countless lives and reshaping the very foundation of financial services. It was proof that one person's decision to stand up for what's right could create ripples of change that would be felt for generations to come. Fim de Historia. Dear viewers, we hope Alexander Kane's journey of transformation has touched your hearts and inspired you to believe in the power of change. This story reminds us that success isn't just about numbers in a bank account. It's about the lives we touch and the opportunities we create for others. If this message resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. We've created a special playlist full of equally inspiring stories about business leaders who chose to make a difference. Find it by clicking the link below. Share your own stories of transformation in the comments. Your experience might be the inspiration someone else needs to start their own journey of change. Remember, every day brings a new opportunity to make a difference. See you in our next video.